Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. The Bahamas focuses on eliminating violence in the workplace. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 6 December 2022. Details when we return. Welcome back. Bahamas ratifies ILO Conventions 159 and 190, seeking to eliminate violence in the workplace and employment services for disabled people, respectively. ZNS's Fern Kerry reports.
In ratifying International Labour Organization Convention 159, the Bahamas joins other countries regionally and globally in taking steps to ensure the rights of everyone to be in a workplace that is free from violence and harassment. While signing on to ILO Convention 190 means that members of the disabled community across the country can be assured of suitable employment. Looking beyond the signing of the two agreements, Director of Labour Robert Farquharson says the work begins immediately towards implementation.
We in the Ministry of Labour and Immigration, with the assistance of the National Traffic Council, took a very bold approach to ensure that this convention is ratified and to call on the government of the Bahamas over the next 6 years to ensure that the fundamental principles enshrined in ILO Convention are then transferred to the statute laws of the Bahamas.
ILO Caribbean Director Dennis Zulu applauded the Bahamas for its commitment to social justice.
The Bahamas is now in its second generation of the Decent Work Country program. What does that tell us? That tells us that the Bahamas is very serious and committed to ensuring that it achieves decent work for all. And this commitment is evidenced by the Bahamas having in place a plan which shows where exactly it wants to go, how it's going to get there, and at the end of the trip, know whether it's achieved the results or not.
Labour and Immigration Minister, the Honourable Keith Bell, boasted that most of the provisions of the ILO 159 have already been enacted into the country.
I am pleased to advise that the Cabinet has directed the Law Reform Commission to take urgent steps to draft the necessary legislation to ensure that the essential principles that underpin ILO Convention 190 and ILO Convention 206 are included in draft legislation for review by the NTC. Extensive consultation and discussion with the wider Bahamian society before it is approved by the Cabinet and subsequently tabled, debated, and passed in Parliament.
The implementation phase of the National Child Labour Policy was also launched during today's symposium. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Fern Kerry.
Trinidad and Tobago is suffering from a leadership crisis. That's according to political leader of the National Transformation Alliance, Gary Griffith. Overshitawari Rupnarayan of TV6 News reports.
Gary Griffith told a meeting of his National Transformation Alliance in Chaguanas he's not seeing the Prime Minister dealing with the crises facing the country.
Every time the country needs leadership, he disappears. The majority of the government did disappear, void of leadership. They do not know what to say, they do not know what to do. They go absent. The incompetence in that aspect of leadership. Recently, from the floods, landslides, the nationwide blackout, the Paria disaster, traffic management or lack of, crime, communication to the public or lack of.
Griffith reminded the meeting that he was responsible for setting up the National Operations Center when he was National Security Minister in the People's Partnership Government, and had it still been in operation, TNT would not have had the extent of tragedies it has experienced.
One hand did not know what the other was doing. So when they had this situation, nobody knew what to do. There was a lack of coordination, lack of information being fed. Because of lack of information, it meant that nobody knew what to do. So they stood in their shoes and they wondered. And because of that, persons lost their lives. A National Operations Center would have ensured that all the information was fed in real time, and then we'll be able to have the information to now, bam, come with an operational plan to get in there and get it done.
Griffith says he knows he would not be appointed police commissioner again, but has applied for the post to prove a point.
I was fully aware that there is not a snowball chance in heck that I will ever be appointed as commissioner of police. So my application for Commissioner of Police was specifically for one thing and one thing only: to show to the country the arrogance of one individual. Because had I not applied, he would have then stated, well, I didn't reject him, he didn't apply. But I am going to apply, and I did apply. And if and when I come first, let him for once be a man and say that he rejects me in Parliament.
Griffith did suggest on Wednesday night a cabinet reshuffle was imminent, but this turned out to be just a rumor. Rashid Tawari, Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
Trinidad and Tobago scans 5 times as many ship containers entering its ports than the United States of America, and 11 times more than the European Union.
This from Minister of Finance Colin Imbert in response to commentary in the media regarding a recent disclosure that the Customs and Excise Division scans 17% of containers entering Trinidad and Tobago at official ports of entry. Minister Imbert, via a media release, gave statistics from the July 2021 American Journal of Transportation, which reveals that Customs and Border Protection currently scans 3.7% of the roughly 11 million containers entering the U.S. each year. He says further a publication by the European Commission reveals that only 2% of containers are physically inspected worldwide, whereas Trinidad and Tobago physically inspects over 20% of containers, or 10 times the world average. The finance minister says virtually all countries in the world use a risk-based assessment system and intelligence gathered by local security agencies and international security partners to profile importers and identify suspicious or high-risk cargo, which is why their level of scanning and physical inspection of containers is so much less than Trinidad and Tobago.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The Ministry of Health in St. Lucia is encouraging St. Lucians to take the annual flu vaccine to ward off influenza. Public health officials are making a special appeal to people with pre-existing conditions and high-risk groups with weakened immune systems. Solange Alfred of HTS News Force has more.
Attack the seasonal flu this year by getting boosted with the influenza vaccine. The flu season typically runs from October to March. The Ministry of Health is putting the public on alert to ensure their shots are up to date to give the body a fighting chance to keep the annoying flu at bay.
The flu virus constantly changes. As a result, the vaccine is updated from one season to the next to protect against newer influenza virus strains. It is for this reason that it is recommended yearly.
Itchy eyes, runny nose, phlegm-filled coughs, and body pains are all signs and symptoms that your body may be under attack from the influenza virus. National Immunization Manager Nurse Tecleja Baptiste warns vulnerable people and those at high risk to take no chances when it comes to the influenza virus protection.
The flu is a contagious and potentially serious respiratory disease that can result in unfavorable outcomes, including severe illness, hospitalization, and death. For this reason, it is important for persons, especially the vulnerable, to be vaccinated against the virus causing the flu.
According to the health expert, the flu vaccine has a myriad of benefits,
including reducing the risk of flu illnesses, severe infection, hospitalization, and even death. The vaccine is an important preventative tool, especially for persons living with chronic health conditions and other vulnerable populations, such as pregnant women.
Thankfully, the vaccine is free of charge at a medical center near you.
The flu vaccine is available at all wellness centers and it is free. Persons are encouraged to call or visit the nearest wellness center to access the available flu vaccine. For more information, contact the Community Healthcare Services Unit at 468-5321.
The Ministry of Health urges people to protect themselves this flu season by taking the free influenza vaccine and boosting their immune systems to ward off infection and illness. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
The Vice President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, the PSOJ, says there have been 431 road deaths so far this year, and if the trend continues, 40 more will die by the end of the year.
With an average 1.29 people dying each day, Vice President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Dr. Paris Luai, predicts that based on the pattern of road fatalities, just over 40 people could lose their lives or their loved ones this Christmas season.
That is on track for us to hit 473 by December 31st. That is down from the 484 last year, but that's still 473, too many people dying on the roads.
431 road fatalities recorded, with only 32 days left before the start of the new year. Jamaicans could see more road accidents. During a PSOJ Public Order and Safety press briefing on Wednesday, he says this spike includes the deaths of 2 pedestrians on Tuesday and several motorcyclists, especially in Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Catherine. The Vice President explains road engineering is significant to maintain the rule of law and public order, something he says can be done through a collaborative approach.
Road markings, road lightings, road designs, potholes, drainage, all of those elements is another element of road safety. The National Road Safety Council is advocating what's called safe systems approach. You look at everything, the entire road environment, everything from not just training motorcyclists, but also pedestrians how to cross the roads properly.
Nicola Brown, CVM Live.
Parliament's lower house passed legislation on Thursday in Antigua and Barbuda to allow the government to pay a pension to election scrutineers. Jamie J. Roger of ABS News reports.
Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown introducing the bill in Parliament Thursday. He says it corrects an injustice that left the workers without a pension after retirement.
During the tenure of the UPP, when we made representation for these people to become pensionable, we were told that they were not eligible because they work for political parties and not for the government. But the irony about it, they're paid by the government. They're not paid by political parties. And political parties do not have any sustaining form of revenue to pay anyone. So if indeed that it is the political parties that appoint them that would have the responsibility to pay their pensions, it means that these individuals will not be paid because the political parties do not have the capacity to pay pensions.
Attorney General the Honorable Stenford Benjamin says some eligible workers have already died after giving decades of service.
But in the case of St. George, Mr. Jeremy died recently. 20, 30 odd years he worked as a scrutineer. He died, Mr. Speaker, without benefit of a pension. And there are many others, Mr. Speaker, who between the years of 10 to 25 years have served continuously.
The parliamentarians who spoke all supported the bill, but the government and opposition members blamed each other for not bringing the measure to Parliament sooner.
It was also the United Progressive Party that put a committee in place to meet with the AG for us to discuss this said situation as it relates to pensioners, because we realize that too many persons are leaving, dying out of the system, Mr. Speaker, and not getting a pension.
The United Progressive Party was the government, formed the government immediately after the act was passed for the 2004 election. Am I correct? They had 10 solid years to consider these scrutineers, and they did nothing.
Timing is everything. Timing is everything. And as I said, the UPP didn't do this. Fair enough. They didn't do it. 2 years, 2002 to 2004, the Prime Minister had a full term for 2014, a second term with 3 months to go, and you come up pushing it on now.
There is no wrong time to do the right thing. The fact of the matter, with all of the priorities that this government has had,
we are the party that have brought this bill forward.
The government will pay the pension from the consolidated fund once the scrutineers have retired or the party discontinues their service after they've worked 10 years or more. The payments will be retroactive to ensure all eligible workers benefit from the measure. Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.